Lester Martinez becomes the first world champion to come from the country of Guatemala. It is an interim title he gains on Probox's main event last night, Saturday night in San Bernardino, in a very decisive, dominant fight over Immanuel Aleem, who didn't lay down, who had some good moments in the fifth round, had his best round in the 11th round, but ultimately was outgunned in skill overall by Lester Martinez. And that's what impressed me about Martinez in this fight was his overall skill, his overall craft. He's not the most explosive guy or the hardest hitting guy or the fastest guy, although he's solid in all those areas. He's a very decent athlete. Was light on his feet sometimes, but he has a very relaxed, calm rhythm and style to him, Raheem. And so everything kind of flows out smooth, and he had good defense in this fight. And he changed up his looks from a shoulder roll to a high guard, and he counterpunched well, and he has very good timing. So, I think he cemented himself without question now as a top five super middleweight. The top five in the division reads as Shiraz himself, Christian Mabili, Canelo Alvarez, still obviously, and Iglesias, who is the IBF mandatory. So those are your top five super middleweights. Credit to BoMac having his fighter on point. We know Lester Martinez has done a bunch of rounds with Terrence Crawford, but yeah, it wasn't a spectacular showing, but he is a very skilled all-around fighter. What were your takeaways from last night?
I mean, first of all, shout out to the remaining Lesters of the world. I feel like that's a name I haven't heard since I was in grade school. Lester
Lester
really
Diamond.
isn't, yeah, Lester really isn't this generation's name. So he's holding it up and holding it down for a lot of the old school Uncle Lesters. This guy, I think, deserves the credit that you've given him. And boy, you took some of the words right out of my mouth. I don't know that this is the kind of fight where there is such in-depth breakdown. Sometimes I wish I didn't know where a fighter was training or with whom he was training, so I wouldn't be prefaced in my mind with looking at him from the camp in which he comes. But I see all kind of markings of training with, of course, BoMac, but in camp with Terrence Crawford, with the way those fighters fight relaxed. The word of the night was rhythm for me. I felt like, yes, and all the things that you said, maybe he wasn't profound in any particular area, but he was smooth. His rhythm was working. He was able to move fluidly. He was landing combinations, yes, but almost sometimes his rhythm was working so well that while I wouldn't call it a combination punch because they weren't close enough together, they were almost like single shots rhythm, right? So you could almost, well, I feel like, yes, one shot set up the next, but they weren't thrown in such quick succession that you would necessarily call them combinations. So I have to say, I mean, that means it's working for you. And, coming back from him, Aleem, he was hitting hard. I thought he was, he was throwing some nice leather. He was just not able to get really any of his rhythm together. He wasn't able to put things in place timing wise. He was getting hit from upstairs, downstairs. He was getting hit as Lester was on the move. He was just getting hit. Like obviously, another fight this weekend with Williams, taking a lot of punches for different reasons, but it's just difficult when a guy is landing on you constantly to get your offense mounted, period. And I think that's what we saw. Yes, Aleem had some great spots, especially late. He hit him with some big shots that might have been one of those. They could have been one of those. Oh my God, you've been losing the fight the whole time, and then score a late knockout, and everybody's out of their chair. That didn't happen for Aleem, but he hit him with some big enough shots occasionally where I thought, man, that could have done it with a little bit more mustard. Uh, Lesser, definitely, this is a statement fight for him. This is one of those fights that we'll remember, and he really just looked good winning. It was entertaining. He looked good winning, and you could tell who he was in camp with because it's now like a signature of that BoMac stable.
Yeah, he tapered off a little bit in the back half at times. I agree with Robert Garcia, who was on the call, that he could have went to the body a little bit more. Whenever he touched with
Yeah.
that left hook to the body, it was accurate, and he didn't stay there a whole lot. And you might be expecting something, from a fighter from Latin America, close to around Mexico and El Salvador. But he, like you said, he fought more like a BoMac, Terrence Crawford camp kind of fighter. He was counterpunching. His defense was very good in this fight. He moved his head a lot. He was light on his feet when he would turn guys. It wasn't a whole lot of movement, but it was he was efficient with it and smooth with everything he did. Nothing was forced. And I think to your point, he has a bag. Like he would hook off the jab well. He would counter with a chopping
Mm.
right hand. He would throw a quick little jab to the body and then come up with a right hand. He had a bag. He had a bag. He has a skill set. He has sophistication in there. And if he can find that, because I think this may have been his first time going 12 rounds. He knows it's his first real title fight, interim title, but it's his first title fight. Although forgive me, audience, the Mabili fight might have been an interim title fight. It might have been, I think, and it wound up being a draw. Nobody got it, and now Mabili's going to fight Canelo for the full WBC, and he's fighting in an interim fight. But if he could find another gear in his next fights going forward, put a little something extra on it, invest to the body a little bit more, like put some of that Latin America flavor on it, where sometimes, okay, I love that you got the head movement. That I love that you got the skills. But here and there, you're a strong kid too. Stay in there, see if you can, put some more combinations together, and you might get a more spectacular finish than going all 12
Mm.
rounds. So it was a sharp performance, but also something he could build upon. And that's not me asking him to get outside of his identity. And credit to the whole camp with Esau Diegas and Red Spikes too. They are a team by committee. It's not just Brian McIntyre, and they are one of the best camps. We talk about the RGBA, the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy. They're one of the best camps as well, and we know that. So yeah, I liked it. And before you cook too, he draw a good crowd of Guatemalans in there. This is a historic moment for them in the sport. Probox, I got to keep the same energy. They were laying it on thick throughout the night. Lester Martinez is a man of the people. Lester Martinez will kiss baby. Lester Martinez, Lester Martinez, Lester Martinez, ladies and gentlemen. But they're aspiring to continue to grow, and they had almost 100,000 people on their live stream. That's serious territory. That's more than some million plus subscribers, influencers outside of boxing. So that their grassroots effort is paying off. But yeah, they were laying it on thick. They were giving us the pro box sell job a little bit. And I gotta be fair, we say it about Zuffa, we gotta say it about.
Well, okay, but let me echo your sentiments and give a little bit more emphasis to the head movement
Yes.
because yes, with that rhythm I'm talking about, being able to hit on the move, I was enjoying watching. Martinez never really stopped anywhere. His feet were never really in the mud. Even in the back half of the fight, he did slow down, but he still never stopped. He wasn't a stationary target. Even when he was not moving his feet, he was moving his upper body. He was giving different looks on his shoulders. I was impressed by how active he was for the whole fight. It was almost like I say, rhythm was the name of the game. It was because it was almost in his head. The music kept playing, right? He never let himself get off beat, if we're going to continue the metaphor. I love to see it. The combination punches where I said, okay, he would throw punches that set up other punches, but they weren't as close together as I might call a combination shot. Let me amend that because you reminded me of something, the touch punch, which is a combination, but because it's almost like a stutter, sometimes he would feint and then go, and sometimes he just touch and then bang. Beauty.
Hmm.
Beauty. And that is a combination shot. Like that's definitely in succession enough. And it's so it's almost like you don't notice it while he's doing it so consistently. You that first stutter punch, that first touch, and then the big shot. You see the big shot, you see it, and then you forget, oh, that was set up by a touch. Oh, he did feint first and then go. And it was working like gangbusters. The only thing I would say about maybe getting a stoppage, whatever. I think maybe he was pressing a little bit. You're right. With the lack of body work, going to the head, everything was working. And I think in his mind, he was working towards the knockout from early. Once he's seen that his rhythm was a go, that he couldn't miss, that everything he was doing was coming off the way he wanted it to come off and landing shots from all angles, he's like, I'm gonna get this guy out of here. The crowd was electric. Like I understand why they were hyping. Yes, I am critical of Zuffa. I'm not just critical though. I'm not critical of a broadcast team hyping the fight. I'm
Mhm.
critical of a broadcast team hyping the fight when there's no substance to the hype. If it's a good one, if it's cracking, if you gotta yell over the crowd, if we're entertained, yeah. Give yourself your flowers. Remind us of what we're looking at. Say the guy's name over and over again, especially if they're not stars, so we remember it. I'm with all of that. It just has to be genuine. Just don't sell me wolf tickets. If you're out there wolfing, then I got a problem. So, Probox is okay with me. I didn't feel like the sell was too hard. I feel like they had, there was something in the box. So sell it, sell it. Tell us, that there's something behind curtain number three. Uh, I I have no issue with saying that Martinez could have done more to maybe get a stoppage, but I believe why he didn't get it was maybe because he was chasing it. If those two statements make sense.
You think so?
He,
You think it wasn't just? I agreed more with what the sentiment that he was staying on rhythm, staying on beat, and staying within that, staying within his groove, and not pressing.
but his groove could have been a bit more educated in that you go start breaking down the body
Yeah.
and then shot selection would have been his friend upstairs at that point, right? Like if you're able to have this kind of success in the offense and your opponent is still able to muster some big power shots and stay in there even though he's getting beat, break that body down. Start thinking about how to set
Robert was
this
asking for that.
knockout up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This again, and you like the what's the word you put? Like if we're gonna be nitpicking, we're
Yeah.
gonna be, it's nitpicking. Like you know what I mean for sure. But I agree with you. Maybe with a little adjustment like that, maybe we do see a stoppage instead of all 12.
Yeah. And by the way, yeah, I was incorrect earlier in guessing whether or not it was his first title fight. It was because him and Mobili on that Canelo Crawford card was a 10 rounder that, of course,
Mm,
went to a draw, 5 rounds apiece. So this was, I think that had something to do with it too, is let me pace myself for the first time over these 12 rounds. And Emmanuel Aleem had a good chin. This was this guy's opportunity. This was this guy's big show too. Emmanuel Aleem, he's no punk. So he held up to a lot of his best shots. He got hit with some heavy chopping shots. And I think Martinez has solid pop. I definitely think he has some solid pop. But I guess to add to that rhythm, that beat he was on, at some point go a cappella. Or to use a rock and roll, have the beat drop and then just start have your acapella, you get it. Or in rock and roll it'd be have your now it's time for the guitar solo breakdown, and
yeah.
that would
Yeah. Now
be
it's time to go Santana.
right. Yeah, there you go. Right, right. From Oye Como Va. There you go. Have your guitar solo moment, your crescendo, because that again, we like to nitpick to always leave a little something there until you get your Crawford Spence, until you get your Hopkins Trinidad, and then it's just mwah, and forget.
Right?
Then we could just trip over ourselves with superlatives. But there was still that moment. I think he has it in him where you rip, baby, you rip. But in order to set that up, and we're piggybacking off Robert Garcia, who's right there with BoMac as the best trainer, saying, touch that body more. And it's funny, Robert, every time he asked for it, it would come a left hook
Mm.
to the body, and then it'd be few and far between again. But I would pause. But
Uppercuts. I'm sorry. I
uppercuts
didn't.
too, yeah.
I,
I thought you hit me with a pause. Yeah.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
This is a pause-free zone. We don't do that. We
Okay,
don't do
cool.
that unless it's just absolutely hilarious.
And we're being
We
silly.
cannot
Yeah.
help it.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I can't believe we were this deep into the show. Pause. And haven't mentioned the uppercuts. The uppercuts from Martinez were brilliant. I mean, also to your point, Aleem's got a chin because man,
Hmm.
some of those shots landing flush. When you're again, you're on when everything's working and that uppercut is popping, and it really does look like old school boxing. That's the other thing. For skillful as both, especially Martinez, but as skillful as he was, and as much of a chin as Aleem had, and his game as Aleem was, as much power as he could muster when he landed his big shots, it looked more like one of those throwback brawl kind of fights. Still, with the skill. I mean, we saw punches from every angle. We saw a fight that went all 12. Even when the fight slowed down a bit, it still never really got stuck in the mud. There was always action. But those uppercuts were maybe my favorite punch of the night.
And counterpunching too. He counterpunched well in between shots. I think to close for me, there was a lot of similarities. Not a lot, but there were similarities. The theme of this weekend was Adames and Martinez. Both
Mm.
moved their head. Both showed really sophisticated all-around skill sets. They had game guys in front of them who were outgunned in craft, and their skills paid the bills. And they paid the bills in a fairly entertaining manner in both fights. So I think both guys handled their business well. Adames a little bit more on the front foot. Martinez stayed in the pocket plenty. Was in the pocket almost basically the whole night. I mean, he don't take too many steps back. He took a lot of nice steps around. They both went about their business very well this weekend. So hats off to all four fighters who headlined this weekend. But got to give that much more to the winners. Adames and Martinez handled their business and made some people even talking about them fighting. Adames going up to 68 and seeing that. I want to see Martinez get to run that back with Mabili. Got to see what Canelo's got left in this division. I think, but even if Canelo handles Mabili, has one of those vintage fights that great Mexican fighters have. Oh, you think Barrera's done? And then he pulls a rabbit out, and then he shows you, no, I still got plenty after Pacquiao or I think there's a good chance, a solid chance Canelo has that too, or Mobili will just be too much for him. But Martinez has positioned himself nicely to where either the hardcores are salivating for a Mobili rematch. Their first fight was all action. I think he's a slight favorite in that rematch because 12 rounds as opposed to 10 rounds is where class can tell over time, skill can tell over time. And if it's Canelo, you got the first Guatemalan world champ against the star of Mexico. That's an appetizing fight for Martinez as well. But him and Adames handled their business this weekend.
Another takeaway is simply that boxing can be had at the highest level from any level of promotion. Both of these weekends really stood out as without a superstar on board, without a massive push behind promoting the fight, you saw excellent performances. A lot of fighters really showed up and made statements, made a name for themselves. Kudos to Probox for being consistent. Another weekend with a fight that had to be covered, that we had to talk about. A packed house with people on their feet, electric energy coming from the crowd. You can't ask for much more from a sport that is still, in a lot of ways, so disjointed, disconnected. We know, where the center of energy has been coming from the past 2 years, but it doesn't matter. It does still mean that boxing, no matter who's promoting, if the if the approach to the sport is genuine and you are doing good matchmaking and you have a legitimate contender in the ring, you're going to see some of the best action of any sport anywhere. You can't skip any weekends in boxing right now. Give credit to Ring and to all the big promoters. And a lot of times when I push back on you about, whether or not this is the best boxing era we've had the last couple of eras and what Ring and his excellency is doing for the sport, that's really just to keep the conversation balanced, but it is never to take away from what can be done independently. and is consistently proven in this sport when you have promoters making matchups, keeping fighters in mind, and giving the fans what they deserve to see. Sometimes fights we don't even know that we need will be produced in an environment like this. So it don't gotta be on Netflix. It doesn't have to be ring. Doesn't even have to be a championship fight. It just has to be quality promoters putting together good matchups. And that's what we've been. Well, some fans are calling this a slow time in boxing. If this is slow, then a rising tide really does lift all boats because every weekend we've had some great, great matchups to talk about, and this weekend has been no exception.
I just want to give a well wishes and prayers to Isis Sayo, who fought Jocelyn Camarillo on the undercard. One round fight. Camarillo won by knockout. She is in a medically induced coma right now, fighting for her health. And I hope she's able to make a speedy recovery and come out of everything okay. We'd be remiss not sending her well wishes. She fought on the undercard. So
Yeah. And on the back of that little speech I just gave, that's what fighters are willing to sacrifice to climb through those ropes and what they risk for our entertainment at all levels. So well done, Sean. And yeah, prayers up all around the boxing community and the world at large. We will definitely hope she pulls through and gets back to full health.